This video shows how a simple rotary encoder dial can function as a full-featured input device. Integers, floating point, and alphanumeric data can be input. Menus can be used to organize logical functions. This is good for single-board computers that can't accommodate a full keyboard. Here's our input device. It's a rotary encoder dial with a PCB. The details of this have all been covered in a previous video, so I won't go into that here, but basically all we have is the ability to go counterclockwise and clockwise, which triggers interrupts, which allows us to read the position of this dial in software. And then we've got a push to select, and we can do something interesting with the push to select. We can set it up so there's a fast press and then there's a slow press, so we can distinguish two different types of push to select here. So we'll see how that works when we get over to the LCD, but this is our basic input device, and the goal here is to allow this to enter numbers and enter an alphanumeric string. So we'll see how that's done. What you're seeing here is a sample LCD display with a menu, and I'm operating the rotary encoder dial that you saw previously in the video. And basically we have 4 items on the menu, and I'm just turning the dial here clockwise, counterclockwise, and it wraps around. So I can go ahead here and select any one of these menu items simply by pushing on the switch. So there are 4 different samples here. So let's go to this encoder variables. All this is just a test of the rotary encoder, and you'll notice that the count is in increments of 4. The interrupt service routines for this are a little different. It actually responds to the 4 quadrature signal events between the detents and the encoder. So that's what you're seeing here. And that makes this encoder operate a little bit better for this type of input. And then of course my push to select, you can see it down here, SEL equal 1, and that gets us back to the menu. So you can do some interesting things with this. We can do a level bar, and so here's a simple level bar. Maybe for volumes you can see the dB indication up in the upper right. So you can do a level bar if you want for input. That's kind of novel. And the more difficult routines are numeric input. So the first sample we're going to see here is a 4-digit integer, and there's a function in the software that allows you to specify the precision and the type of number that you want to input. So basically I'm just turning the dial so I can get plus or minus here, and then by pushing the dial here I can advance through the digits as I need to, and when I stop at a digit I can just turn the dial here to select the digit. So let's say I wanted to do 6,123. There's my number. Then I can do a long press, and it'll give me an option to go back and edit the digits, or just say yes, which means accept the number, or quit, which means quit out of this and leave the number as it was before. So let's go ahead and just go back to edit. That'll just throw me back up in the number, and I can just go ahead here. Let's say I wanted to make this a 5. Do a long press and then go back here and say yes, and that'll accept the number. So if I come back here to numeric input, I'll see that number again because it passed it back to the calling program, and it'll just sit there and you can do anything you want with that. So that's kind of how that works. I'll just quit out of this, and let me go ahead and change a couple of parameters on the numeric input so we can actually see how the floating point works. Okay, I went back and I changed the parameters in the function to allow me to enter a floating point number so we can see what that looks like. And basically I specified 4 digits and 3 of those on the right of the decimal. So now we have a floating point number, and it works the same way as the integer. We can just go ahead here and dial in a number, and we can now create a floating point number any way we want, and we can make this a positive number, and then we'll do a long press, and we can go back and edit like we did before, or we can say yes to accept the number. So we'll do that, and that sends the number back to the calling program. We come back in, and there's the number back again. If we did a quit, it would abandon any input that we did to change the number. So we have two options there. So let's just go and we'll make a change here. And we'll accept this, we'll say yes, and that's that. So the next function is the alphanumeric input, and that's a little bit more complicated, and that looks like this. So basically what you're seeing here is you've got 4 columns and an edit control column and an edit character. So it works as follows. Here's your digits 0 through 9. So you just select those like we did before. And then you do a quick press. It gets you to your uppercase letters A through Z. So you can just turn the dial back and forth and it wraps around. So that gets you all your uppercase letters. You can press again. This is all your lowercase letters. And then you can press again. And then this is all your special characters that you would see on the keyboard. So you can pick any of these that you want. And then we press again. And these are editing options. There's no input yet, but we'll see that in a minute. You can clear your string. You can go ahead and delete a character in the string from the end. You can go ahead and replace an individual character in that string based on how you select the position. And the question mark that's below the RPC, that's the edit character, and it defaults to a question mark. And then there's a save option if you want to go ahead and save your input. So let's go ahead and build up a string. So we'll go here and we'll go long press, yes, and then we'll pick another digit, long press, yes, and then we'll move over here, long press, yes, and we'll go ahead and let's pick up a lowercase character, long press, yes. So we're starting to build up a string, and we'll pick a special character, long press, yes, and that picks up your $sign and gives you a 5-character alphanumeric string. So what we can do here is we can clear the string, and I made a mistake here. I did a short press. We want to do a long press. That'll clear that string. So let's build up another string, long press, yes, long press, yes. Go to some letters here, long press, yes. Go to lowercase letters, long press, yes. And now let's pick another lowercase letter here, long press, yes. So we got another 5-character alphanumeric string, and let's go over to our edit option and let's select delete. And what that'll do is that'll delete characters off the end of the string, in other words the right hand portion of the string. So we do a long press, we do a long press. So that's how you can delete characters. So we'll go ahead here and let's put some characters back in, long press, yes, and then we'll pick this $sign. This just wraps around, long press, yes. So we got another 5-character string, and then the last of the 3 editing functions is replace. So we want to go ahead and pick a replace character. So let's go ahead and say that we want to replace something in that string with this X. So we go ahead and long press and we can pick edit. So you'll see that that character underneath the DEL is changed to an X. So that's now our default replace character. So we go ahead and go over to these edit functions and hit replace, do a long press, and the cursor jumps down to our string, and by turning the dial we can select a character. So we got to pick one of these 5 characters to be replaced. So let's pick the P, and we'll do a long press, and then that gets replaced with the X, and then we jump back up to the editing character, or editing function rather. So let's say the 23x4 $, we're okay with that, and so we'll do a long press, and we do that and we say, oh, I made a mistake, I didn't really want to do that, I actually wanted to save it and end. So what we can do is we can just go to edit and let that change the editing character, and then we can go over here to these options and pick save. So we can do a long press, and then that'll save that character string. So if we go back into the routine, we can see that character string one more time. If I did a long press and I went over here and I did a quit, if that string was null, it would come back as null. If it started off as null and I added some characters to it and I didn't save it, it would not do any type of saving. So the next time I went back in, it would be a null string. So the save is really what you need to do to commit the edits to your string. So that's kind of the demo. That's everything that's in here. That's how it works. And the goal was to sort of simulate in a kind of not as convenient way, but in a simple way, hardware-wise, using a rotary encoder dial and a push to select to allow you to get access to all your keyboard functions, be able to build up numbers, either integer numbers or floating point numbers, positive or negative, and also to be able to enter alphanumeric strings like you'd be able to on a keyboard. So that's kind of how it works. I've got software that I have to upload, and I've got some documentation that I've got to do for this, and also explain the interrupt service routines, which are just a little different than what was covered in my previous videos. So I'll try to get that out as quickly as possible, and I usually put links in the description so you can hit those and get over to the details on how this works. You can download the code and you can take a look at it. So hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.